Hello, welcome back to another episode of Wealth in Christ Show, a show where we empower Christians to become financially free without compromising their faith in Christ. On today's show, we have Mr. Festus Oziegbe, and Festus is a young real estate investor with two doors currently, and he's the host of the Investor for the Future YouTube channel. And this episode, we're going to discuss Festus' success as a real estate investor and just as an investor in general. So thank you for being here, Festus.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is my second time, so I definitely appreciate the call back.
No problem. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Woke up alive and well, so I can't complain. That's always been my slogan. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank God for that. Just to get started, from the last time we spoke, I believe you only had one door at that time. I
That
want
is
you to walk me through what happened from going from one door to two door, and what made you to make that decision that you should get another property under your belt.
Yeah, so when I was purchasing my first property, it was actually a very stressful time for me. I had transitioning, always leaving a location to location is always very difficult. And I was actually transitioning from Amazon to the restaurant industry, which was even more stressful. However, I was chasing money, a lot of money at the time. And in my pursuit of money, it took a lot of my time away as well. The first initial thought that I had was to house hack that property. For those who are not familiar with house hacking, that is when you have others live within your rooms, or if you have a duplex, live within the other unit in order to supplement for that mortgage. Um, I did not like the tenants in that area. And so what I decided to do was take an opportunity where I would leave the house, i.e., join the army and learn a new skill, and then rent this house out completely. So I actually never paid the mortgage on that previous house because I had moved someone in that same month, and I had sold the car, sold everything, and was able to live without having any financial responsibility.
That's pretty well. So I guess one thing I want to ask, that you mentioned, you said that you were starting to chase money, pursue money. As a result, you lost time. A common saying, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it, is that time is money. Being that you experienced that, do you still believe that statement is true?
Absolutely. Time is money. And the biggest factor in that is when you make your investments. So I always encourage the young investors to start investing early because you'll make more on that money than investing later on in life. So there's a lot of ways to utilize time. Sometimes time will be utilized without you physically having to be there or mentally having to be present. As long as you set it and forget it, that will be another way to utilize time the right way and have your money work for you.
Okay, okay. That's definitely an interesting perspective. So you mentioned that you sold your house, you sold your cars, and you moved somebody in who take care of the thing. So, but what was your approach the second time around, and to get, or what were you looking for? What were you trying to avoid the second time around?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was nothing that I was truly looking to avoid. Honestly, I always wanted duplexes and multi-family units. The problem with that is that, as you know, all across America, there's bidding wars for these units. In fact, I was just bidding on a $400,000 property, a triplex, and there's a bidding war for it. I just came out recently. I offered 370, was willing to go up to 380, and they have offers above asking price. So because of that, I said, you know what? I'm going to buy property that I would actually want to live in. And if I want to live in it as a bougie New Yorker, I know that there's people in Ohio that would love to live in this property. So the second property that I bought, which I'm in now, I've been able to actually house hack this as well, to the point where I've never actually paid more than 2 months of my mortgage in the last 2 years. So all in all, I've never paid two full mortgages since purchasing any property whatsoever.
That's pretty impressive. And I want to kind of break it down for the viewers. One is that I guess we'll start here. In terms of looking for tenants, because you mentioned that you haven't paid and you only paid 2 months of mortgage or expense in the last 2 years. What do you look for tenants in order to make sure that they're qualified? They have enough money coming in to pay for you, so you don't have to make monthly payments to your mortgage.
Absolutely. So when I went into the army, I decided that my time was more valuable than the money now because I've acquired what I needed to acquire. Because of that, I hired a property manager when I was away. When that property manager was no longer needed, i.e., I came back to Ohio, I decided that I would take that lease that he had created and change it and transform it to fit my needs. I also reached out to my uncle, who is a real estate investor, and I found out how he screens his tenants. So he uses TransUnion in order to screen their credit and things of that nature. So if someone wants to live in my property, I say, well, this property costs $250,000. I need to understand that you can pay not only the deposit, pay the rent. There's always going to be people with bad credit. There's always going to be people with horrible situations that have happened to them, maybe a divorce, whatever the case may be. As long as they're open and honest with me, because I'm someone who is big on integrity, I have allowed people into my home who had a bad ding or a bad mark. But I also understand that there's a benefit in being a big, strong Black man in America, and that when you live with someone, they're probably not going to be running away from you and not paying you. So I haven't had any issues with getting paid.
Okay. And something you mentioned as well, like you talk about put an offer for a house of $400,000. I want you to kind of break down that scenario of the bidding, like what goes into people want to bid for a price, or how you go about reaching a price that this is what you want to buy this house for. Like what strategy do you use to come with that price?
Right, absolutely. So what I look for is cash flow before anything. A lot of people are focused on the appreciation, they're focused on making money later. And that's why a lot of these prices on these properties are going for way more than what they're actually worth. This particular unit was $400,000 listed about 2 days ago, and every unit was renting for about $1,366.81. So if you do the math, there's 2 units already rented and one that is not. This is an ideal situation because if you're familiar with loans, I can actually live in one of the units, and now it's a residential unit rather than a rental unit. This will give me a cheaper interest rate if I decided to house hack. And that's why they left one unit empty. Also, if I decided to rent it out a year later, it would now have the cheaper interest rate, and it would be cash flowing. Well, it would be profiting at least about 4,000 a month after raising rents. The issue with that is that the mortgage would have been right around 3,300, maybe 3,100. And so I wanted to cut down that price by about 30,000, saving me about $200. Use my VA loan, take that mortgage interest off, and then with my good credit score, I'd be able to negotiate a nice interest rate. That would have put me right around $500 to $600 in cash flow every single month after expenses for the year. And this is a brand new build property. I would be bringing in over $7,000 a year off of that unit.
Well, that's pretty impressive. And just for those who are listening, this may be the first time watching. For many of them, maybe they don't know, but I would say here you're 26, if I'm not mistaken, 26, 25.
That is correct. That is
Uh,
correct.
26. And you look across America, you look across the world. Not that many people are in a position where they can say they own two properties. So what would you suggest, is the best way for someone younger? I'll start with that. Someone under, let's say 18, someone that's 18, what would you say to your 18-year-old self to do now to position themselves to where at 26, at 25, they're able to purchase properties?
Yeah, so it really truly depends on what industry you want to go into. If you're going to college, I would suggest that you study in a field that after 4 years, you can make at least $70,000 or more without needing advanced education. That would include nursing, computer science, software engineering, studies like that. Now, if you decide school isn't for you and you're not going to do a trade or government work like police officer or firefighter, which will also give you that type of money, then I would suggest going into sales. Whether you're a real estate agent that started at 18 or you are a refinance advisor who started at 17. I made $65,000 one year doing refinancing for properties. You don't need any experience to do that. But after 2 years, you will definitely be raking in enough cash after budgeting to start looking at investments.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. And one thing I want to ask, what was some resource that you tap into or you look for to learn about these different type of loans, what is a VA loan, how to use this loan? What were some resource that you use to learn more about these things?
Yeah, so a lot of these resources actually wasn't found on YouTube. As much YouTube as I consumed about finance for years, a lot of it actually came from me doing Google searches. And then when I finally decided to buy a book on loans in particular, there was only one loan that I did not know at that point, you know, and that loan was a FHA 203K loan. That was the only loan that I had not known. But aside from that, I had known every loan. And after being a refinance agent myself, that just opened up my eyes to even more loans. So at that point, I felt as though the world was my oyster. I'm just running in a circle, reviewing the same topics, you know?
No problem. And can you quickly run through the different type of loans for people? So I know you mentioned the VA loan. You can start off with that. What is
Absolutely.
the VA loan for people can?
Absolutely. This is a segment all in itself just to give you the loan breakdowns, but a VA loan is a loan that you can get after being a military veteran or a spouse of one who had died in battle. You can put 0% down, which in a low interest rate environment like we just had would have been an amazing opportunity that we did not really take advantage of. Um, that will allow you to purchase a property with little down. And if you're like me and don't pay for the mortgage, they're essentially giving you equity in principal with every tenant that pays it down. Now, VAs can have more costs, points, and expenses for closing, even though the price, the equity to entry is essentially free. You can get those costs covered by the bank by taking a higher interest rate. A lot of people don't know that, but if you go up in rate, the bank will pay your closing costs for you. Um, FHA loan, you can only get one FHA loan. So you have to be smart and strategic about what you're doing. A FHA loan, you can put 3.5% down instead of 5. Now with 3.5% down, you can purchase a property again for as little money down. Let's say you want to acquire a duplex or a fourplex as a primary residence. That $400,000 property you can now get for under $10,000, and that's because you're using an FHA loan. And if you have those numbers that I broke down before in a nice interest rate environment, well, guess what? You can be cash flowing on a property that you wouldn't have been able to afford on your own. The reason why you want to use a FHA and VA loan properly is because if I don't use them, then I can get an assumable loan. Some people have never heard of an assumable loan, and that is the loan that I would particularly love to use in this environment. An assumable loan can only be used with an FHA or VA loan. If you use your FHA, you can't use it again. And if you use your VA loan, you can't use it unless you don't have the VA loan anymore, which means you either refinance out of the VA loan or you sold the VA home. An assumable loan means that you can actually purchase the property that someone else had in 2020 at a 3% interest rate and assume their mortgage as long as it's a FHA or VA loan. So when I buy a property, a savvy investor might say, what is he doing buying properties at 8% interest rates? And I would say, this person is an idiot. Why would I buy a property at an 8% interest rate? My property is 3%. And not only that, but knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And people don't talk about it enough. But when I buy a property, someone might say it's a bad decision. I say, you don't have the knowledge to compete, and therefore you can't. When someone beats me out on a duplex, I assume that they're taking a bad deal because I'm negotiating a rate that I believe is best. But maybe they just have more knowledge than me to purchase that property at a higher rate, at a higher price point. And so I haven't used my FHA, I haven't used my VA loan. The only problem with the assumable loan is that you have to come up with the difference in the cost. So if someone bought it for $280 and it's now worth $350, you have to have $70,000 of a difference plus whatever they've already paid off. So if they paid off 10,000, now you need 8,000 plus. Now you need the additional 10,000 plus closing costs. So in order to get that 3% interest rate, I need to bring $80,000 to closing plus closing costs. That's going to help me to keep the price the same of the monthly payment that I'm paying and the interest rate the same. And I probably get a home that's already 3 years paid off. So if you think $80,000 is worth a 3% interest rate and 3 years paid off and a 27-year mortgage instead of a 30, then you might want to go with an assumable loan. Did you want me to keep going? Because there's so many more loans.
Yes, I also want you to mention, talk about what is the conventional loan. That's another term that often tossed around. You can just elaborate what is a conventional loan and how do you use that?
Yeah, so conventional loans are actually what I personally have used. Now, these cannot be assumed, which is the unfortunate part about it, unless you wrote that and negotiated that in the contract with your lender or bank. Most people don't negotiate these things, and therefore they can't do it. So it is possible, but people just don't do it. Conventional loans, you can start at 5%. This will not give you a better interest rate than the FHA loan. However, you won't have permanent PMI, which is private mortgage insurance that the FHA loan will always have. Your PMI will get dropped off. Your private mortgage insurance will drop off once you hit 20% in equity. So although your interest rate isn't as good as the FHA, when that PMI drops off, you tend to save a little bit more money. Another thing you want to look at is never actually put in 20% down right away. If you want the best interest rate, if you want the best interest rate, you have to put about 10 to 15% down. This is starting to change in the loan and mortgage industry, but for right now, it's 10 to 15% will give you the best conventional loan rate. And if you don't want the PMI, just put the additional percentage down on principal afterwards. And now you get rid of the PMI and you have a better interest rate. That's how I tend to buy properties.
That's wonderful. I appreciate you breaking that down. One thing that that seemed like to be something you mentioned a lot is interest rate. As you know, interest rate is very high. I believe it's about 6 or 7% right now. From my last time I look at it, how will you suggest people to go by and invest in a very high interest rate environment?
It truly depends on who you are and what you're capable of affording. Obviously, rates will not be this high forever. They will go back down. This is a time where I would advise most people to save money because they simply can't afford to invest in this environment. The federal government is forcing you to not buy in this environment and save money and not spend. My savings account just went up to 4.4%. That's free interest on my savings. I'm making, I'm not even going to give you that number, but listen, you don't even have to be an investor right now to be making money that you would have made in the bond market just by having a high interest savings account. Okay. So if one asset class is hindering you, another asset class is working in your favor. Another thing you want to look at is Series I bonds. When I was investing in Series I bonds, I put 10,000 in, which is the maximum you can put every year, and they were yielding 7.9%. Now they're down to about 5.5%. But imagine getting almost 8% returns on your money backed by the government with no real downside or downturn to it. And when interest rates go back down, all I'll do is take that money out and buy properties at a lower interest rate, right? So you have to use interest rates in your favor because you have to capitalize and maximize the type of money that you can make.
No, that's 100% true. And I want you, to explain what is our interest bonds for those who may not know. Like, what does that term
Yeah,
mean?
so the government has two different types of bonds. If you all remember, your grandma used to give you a bond back when you were a kid, a nice little bond that you couldn't take out for 20 years. And that's not the Series I bond. That's a different type of bond. That's the Series E, which after 20 years, you are guaranteed to double whatever the money is that they put in. And again, that maximum is 10,000 per year. So if they only did 1 year for you, it's going to be 20,000 by the time you're 20 years old, right? That is a guaranteed return on that type of bond. In 20 years, you will double your money, whatever the amount you put in. The Series I bond is different. The interest rate can actually be zero, but it matches the inflation rate. So right now, inflation is so high. Everyone is screaming inflation is high. That's great. That's great for me, at least, because I have knowledge. So I'm going to buy a Series I bond and I'm going to get an 8% return in an 8% interest rate environment. I'm simply just matching the inflation rate. I'm not truly making money, but where am I going to get an 8% return that's risk-free right now?
Yeah.
Unless the government decides to default on its debt. I think that the American dollar is strong. If I'm going to live in America and work for America and make money in America in US currency, I might as well bet that I can make money with the government in US currency.
That's 100% right. I'm being that all that said, I wanted to ask this question, and this question is, 'cause people will watch this video, they see people who are like-minded like you on social media and platform saying you guys are buying houses, you guys are investing, you know, I want to ask, what a common mistake or misconception you have observed among young investors? Like, what separate you from people who wants to be in the same position as you? What would you see like mistakes they made, and how did you avoid those mistakes?
Yeah, although I love people, I do not care what they think. And I think that is what separates me from others. The reason I got into investing was not just because of the money itself, but it was because I wanted the freedom to not have to acquiesce to other people's whims or desires. In order to do that, I've broken away from a simple job. I don't need to work. In fact, I was retired for some time. When I go on a podcast or when I allow people into my life, allow people into my home, or throw a massive party, it's those that I want around me, those that I want to celebrate life with. If you want to be able to celebrate life without feeling the burden of financial struggles and financial problems, then you need to reach financial freedom. You have to give up on short-term gratification. You have to give up on 7 trips per year partying and going out. You have to give up on having the nicest car right now because everybody else does. When I go and purchase something tomorrow or the next day, everyone is so amazed and surprised. They're like, oh my goodness, this guy is living his best life. But for 2 years, you haven't heard from me. From 2 years, you haven't seen nothing. I can finish this video and hop in my $1,700 massage chair or go downstairs and play pool, and or go to my backyard and light a fire pit. I can give you a house tour if I feel like it, and you know, but it's it's not about right now, because even today I'm like, all this stuff that I have, it's not that I want more, but I will have more. And so this is nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And people may be impressed by this. I have to do nothing for this now. The massage chair will always be here. The fireplace will always be there. The pool table will always be there. The houses will always be there. And my insurance will make sure of that. But once you've worked hard for things that actually make you wealthy, you no longer have to work hard again. People will always be amazed by the same things that I've already accomplished, that I already have. And it's only going to make me more money. This 250,000 will be 500,000 in 10 years. The other property is already worth over 200,000. I bought it for 140. 10 years from now, it'll be worth 400,000. If I had bought the other $400,000 property, now I have more than $1 million in property. Now we're having a whole different video.
Yeah.
You know, so at the end of the day, is what you want out of life. Short-term gratification will prevent you from your long-term success. You cannot care what people think. If everybody wants you to go out and party, I'm having the massive parties now, but that's not all the time. You know, if someone invites me out, I might say, no, we're not going out. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. And if I decide to, it's because I want to. It feels horrible. It feels absolutely horrible to say no when you actually don't have the money. But when you have the money, it's just another day.
That's tough. Hey family, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. And if you are and you have yet to subscribe to us here on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. And also, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts and you have yet to leave us a 5-star review, please do so. Now back to the episode. That's very tough. And, being that said, I want to kind of switch gear a bit, and just talk about, how has your faith, in Christ through this journey help you, from a young age, getting interested in real estate, and investing in the stock market and going through the ups and downs. Like how has your faith in Christ help you in this journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm very, very spiritual. And I did grow up in a Christian and Catholic household. And, you know, we all lean on things to get us through our tough times. When you feel down, when you feel as though you can't accomplish what you need to accomplish, definitely lean on God, lean on your Savior to take you from that place. Because as long as you're consistent, you will be fine. For me, sometimes I do lean on God, and sometimes I lean on music. Sometimes I lean on isolating myself from others and my peace of mind to get me to where I want to be. And I have to be consistent, right? Again, you cannot stop. For example, I'm about to start a business. There's been so many hurdles in the last 2 months, so many, but now things are working in my favor. Things are going the right way. If you stop, it will never happen for you. And one saying that I've always heard is God helps those who help themselves, right? So if you don't help yourself, you're not going to make it far. You're not. You can pray, you can do whatever you want, but if you're just sitting on your butt all day, you're not going anywhere fast.
That's 100% sure. You definitely have to help yourself and position yourself. If you definitely want better for yourself. And I want to ask, because you mentioned that, a real estate may not be working out for you to look into other asset class. I know last time we talked about investing in the stock market. Are you still doing that, investing in the stock market, and how do you manage your money in terms of saving for possibly buying another property while also investing in the stock market if you are?
Absolutely. The number one thing I always say to new viewers is to budget, 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 budget. Most people don't even have a budget, and that is the number one thing before debt, before anything else. If you don't know how to budget, you will not go anywhere in life. Okay. I invest in multiple streams of income, including the stock market. I have I have two Roth IRAs, two 401ks. And then of course I have my independent stock portfolio. I just invested in Tesla and Facebook, especially when they were down, and they're both over a 97% return. I'm in the green, even in this recessionary time, and I'm well over 28%. I have always averaged over 20% in the stock market, and I'm proud to say that I'm continuing to do that. I'm a dividend long-term investor, and that has only increased. That dividends has continued to go up and go up and go up. I remember when my goal was to make $1 a month, and then the goal was $30 a month, because if I ever was homeless, at least I can dig into that savings dividend account and take out $30 without losing my initial investment and buy me $1 burger every single day. That is the go to success, when you know that you can live without ever starving. From there, when I got to that goal of $30 a month, the next dividend goal was $40 a month, because that was how much my phone bill cost. It was so much easier from 1 to 30 than 30 to 40. 30 to 40 was so much easier. And then once I hit that $40 mark, I just checked back a few days ago, and I think I'm at like $50.50 a month now, just in dividends. And of course, I'm adding to that every single month. And then I like personally every December, I put an additional $6,000 in every December. And so that's going to impact my dividend investment by so much. I think that's another $10 in dividends a month that's going to be added to that fuel. On top of my Roth IRA, that is a company match 5%. And I personally invest 14% from day one. So that's about a 19% investment every single month, well over $6,000 to $7,000. So I invest at least $13,000 to $14,000 in the stock market every year.
That's pretty impressive. And I wanna what I want to say. What I want to ask is that maybe you may hear that, I guess we'll start with this. I want to ask, how do you go about budgeting your money? When you get your paycheck, from your job, how do you go about budgeting money? What percent of money goes towards investing? What percent of money goes towards expense? What percent of money goes to possibly entertaining yourself, buying a massage chair, buying a pool table? How do you divide your money to make sure it works for you?
Wow. If you take my strategy, you'll never be broke again. So if y'all listening, listen up. When you start a new job, if they offer 401k, Roth IRA, or anything like that, from day one, you invest. And you invest whatever you decide you want to invest. For example, for me, I said I'm going to invest 14%. So on day one, I've actually never seen a full check from my job that I work now. The reason why is because I don't want to miss something that I've never had. And you can always work with what you've never seen. You see, people are so easily able to spend whatever they have, but if you never had that extra $200, $300, you're not going to spend it. So that 14% for me has been working from day one. I started that job in April, and I'm well over $3,000 in that account already. Plus the company matches about $80 to $90 every 2 weeks. So I'm making more in the company match than I have with a 3-year individual stock portfolio and dividends, right? Because the company match alone is $90, although it's significantly less than what I have in my individual account. That company match alone is making so much profit for me. Another thing is, although I love eating out, when it comes to investing and when it comes to saving, when I say, oh, I'm going to put $6,000 in the stock market, that means I'm also going to sacrifice, because the job that I have now is no longer a job that is about money, but a job that is about time. It allows me to do these podcasts on the weekend. It allows me to hang out with friends. It allows me to do my own show. It allows me to create music and work on my businesses and read. And what that came with was a pay cut from what I'm normally used to making as a manager. Because of that, I have to budget even more aggressively, because I have not sacrificed my investments. I have not sacrificed spending $13 in the stock market, right? And because I have the blessing of people paying my mortgages for me, I'm able to look at my accounts every now and then and say, you know what? I just got paid. I'm putting $1,000 in my savings. You know what? I got a little too much money. I'm putting $2,000 in my savings. And when I started getting paid from the Army, from the military as well, I said, I'm going to attack my mortgages as well. It's a lot of money, about $300,000 in debt to pay off. So what did I say? I'm going to start attacking the principal. So I put an extra $300 every single month towards the principal, because I'm not paying the mortgages. Why not start to lower it down more and more every single month? I'm so far ahead on my mortgage payments, it doesn't even make sense. So when you start investing before you even see the money, there's nothing in the budget for. And then when you start to invest a lump sum at the end of the year, you don't have to put $500 every month. I only invest $100 into my individual account every month, because I do that lump sum every year of 6,000. And of course, I'm gonna have the money when you're throwing $1,000 away, $1,000 away. But instead of digging into my savings account, because I don't like to do that, I'm just gonna save that 6,000 in my checking, and then boom, just throw that at my investment account. I also don't eat out a lot, like I've said. I try to budget about $200 a month for food, $250 a month for food. And whenever I feel like eating out, like today, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna grab something to eat. And that's rare for me. But you know what? I decided I'm going to treat myself. Why not? Everything is going well. Everything has been going well for years. Why not go and get a $10, $20 meal? So that's just how I do things. I don't buy things I don't need. Netflix, Hulu. I don't need all that stuff. So you know what? I asked my brother for it if I need it one day.
No, that's definitely wonderful. One thing I want to also ask you, you mentioned that you read a lot. I want to ask, what kind of books do you read to continue to build on the knowledge that you currently have? What are some recommendations do you have?
Yeah, so when I was first getting started, a book that kind of inspired me a little bit. I wouldn't really say it inspired me, because my uncle probably inspired me the most, without me actually knowing. But Rich Dad Poor Dad was definitely a big inspiration. It allowed me to start asking the questions that I was already asking. For example, rich people don't pay taxes. I was always saying, instead of being mad at them for not paying taxes, how do I not pay taxes? That was the first question I would always ask. Oh, this person made $1 billion. How did they do it? That's the question that I would always ask. What business did they start? What did they continue to do? These NBA players, they'll start podcasts. Why? They don't want regular jobs, right? They want to be spokespeople. They want to write books. Okay, this is what all the millionaires are doing. You see it every single day. Why don't you do that yourself? And so if you want to be like them, even if you never work a day in your life, but you write a book and sell it every single year on Amazon, eventually, after 40 years, someone's going to say this person has the best selling book. But no reason but all the time and effort that you put in to make that one book every single year. So Rich Dad Poor Dad was really, really inspirational for me. But I think what really got me into real estate was going outside, going to an open house, meeting my agent for the first time, who I didn't know would be my agent. We didn't even speak about real estate. All we did was speak about stocks and how Tesla or Netflix or whatever we were speaking about that day was going up. The agent was so wholesome, so down to earth. They didn't care about selling anything to me. I probably couldn't have afford that house at the time. It was like almost $600,000. Um, and he just had a conversation. He said, you know what? He's here. I don't have anybody else to talk to. So he talked to me. And when I decided to start looking at real estate, I would go house to house to house. He showed up to open up a duplex for me without even knowing who I was. I took his number, called him. He didn't even know who I was. Showed up to a bad neighborhood, opened up that duplex for me. I didn't buy it. 20 more properties he sold with me. I didn't buy it. 20 more properties he sold with me. I didn't buy it. After all that, and I did bid on maybe like 6 properties. But again, those bidding wars on the duplexes was crazy. So I lost every single one of them. Right around Christmas time, 2020, he's about to go on vacation with his wife. The first time he was almost about to say no to me on seeing these properties. I saw a duplex that day and I saw a single family house. And I got that same email that I always get. Best and final offers by tomorrow at 12 o'clock on a duplex. You know what that means? That means there was a lot of bids. This person is filling themselves and they're like, if you really want this property, I want your best and final offer by tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And I already know the real estate market. I already know that somebody's going to offer $10,000 to $15,000 more. Although that would have been a steal back then, and I should have taken it. I decided to go with the single family property that just got back on the market because somebody didn't close. So it was very desirable, but somebody couldn't close because they didn't have the finances. So what I said was, we're going to go with the single family property. I want to take $5,000 off of the house. My uncle was the first one to say, don't take no money off. Just buy it, buy it, buy it. And lo and behold, a minute later, they took $5,000 off of the house. So 145,000 became 140, just like that. You'll probably hear a saying in real estate, you make money when you buy.
Yeah.
And I got $5,000 off that I don't have to pay for, just like that, just by saying I want $5,000 off. So communicate, because you're not going, closed mouths don't get fed. And I was able to then also get some repairs done to the property as well, that's been renting to the same tenant. I've made my money back and them some already. And it's just a blessing, but you have to go out there. You have to be active. You have to walk up to the open house. You see a house that's open in your market on Redfin. It says open house. You can't buy it. It's nice. It's beautiful. And guess what? That real estate agent is making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. If you want to be in a real estate, if you want to know the agents, if you want to know more about loans, if you want to know more about distressed properties that you might not even know that you qualified for, making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, your agent might just be able to tell you all of those answers just by getting to know them, and it benefits them, and it's free for you because they get paid when you buy. So you can ask them every single question in the world, but you're not going to get it sitting on your butt just scrolling through Instagram. You're going to get it by scrolling through Redfin and saying, you know what, I'm gonna go to this open house today. I can't afford it, but what's the hurt? And if you're hungry, guess what? They got free snacks and candy for you when you get there. So yeah, you'll be fine.
I definitely appreciate that. I also want, before you wrapped up, I want to talk about your show, Investing for the Future. What inspired you to get started in talking about investing on this channel?
Yeah, so investing for the future stemmed from I was giving advice to those who wanted the advice. I always told myself that I would not give advice to those who don't want it, because if you don't want the advice, then it's a waste of my time and a waste of my energy. But I realized that when I gave the advice for free, some people would not take the advice. They would ask me for it, but they still wouldn't take it. And I felt, wow, what a waste of time. And when people started to pay for my advice, they still wouldn't take the advice. So I said, wow, what a waste of time. And so I said, you know what? Instead of having the people pay me, they're going to pay me with their time because I've wasted my time for way too long trying to educate, inspire, and motivate. And so when I started investing for the future, I said, don't worry, YouTube and Rumble will pay me. All you have to do is dedicate your time, subscribe, hit the like button, and make sure y'all hitting the like button on his channel too. And I believe that that was beneficial. And so now when people text me, hey, I love this episode, hey, this motivates me, hey, interest rates are high, but you made me feel good knowing that they're gonna come back down eventually. That's nice, and I do get paid. Not on YouTube yet, but on Rumble I've been getting paid, and so a lot of that is gonna go back into the channel for 2024, in order to improve the processes, and a lot of changes will be happening very soon to my studio as well. So that's really what inspired me to do it, because whether I get paid or not, the advice wasn't being heard, and so I wanted to expand to a broader audience to get the 1 or 10% that truly want the information.
That's amazing. Definitely appreciate you doing that. One question I do want to ask you wrap up. Where do you actually in two ways, two questions. One is where do you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years? You'll be 31. Where do you see yourself as an investor? Where do you see yourself as a person? Yeah, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I always told people by about 30 or 35 that I'd be retired. Well, guess what? I've already retired myself once. I don't pay for anything now. So, I actually don't need to work in order to survive and live. But now that I'm starting a business, it's always about being bigger and better. Before it was just a few million. The average person makes $3 million a year. I mean, the average person makes $3 million in their lifetime. So I said, how do I double that? How do I triple that? I have a friend that's in the NFL. He's making 35 million over the next 3 years. I said, how do I get there? And so I started to think. I started to improve my mindset, right? Because it's never about being envious. It's about how do I do it as well. And I'm looking into government contracting now. My business is now in government contracting. I am already have my EIN, already have my TIN. I'm already have my cage number, already going through the federal process and the government process. Then by December, I'll be bidding on contracts. These contracts are $3, $4, $5 million. Black businesses, they only get 3% of government contracts, but there's $666 billion in government contracts every year. So honestly, it's hard to say because most likely I'll be a billionaire, if not a multimillionaire, because the more you put into it, the more you'll get out. And when you see your friends, when you see your people being successful, and you can't go into the NFL, you have to figure out a different way of getting to where you need to get to. And for me, I'm definitely going to be making 500, 600, 700,000 in contracts by next year, and expanding on that from there.
And that's definitely wonderful. One thing I want to ask, as we wrap it up, we have talked about a lot of different things. As an investor, how do you, well, I guess my question is, how do you find the time to, learn all these different things, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in investment, whether it's in I-series bonds, whether it is high yield saving accounts, to now government contract. How do you make sure you have the time and you learn it well so you can avoid making quote unquote silly mistakes?
Absolutely. So like I stated, I took a pay cut, which was about $15,000, in order to invest in my knowledge, invest in my growth. A lot of the times you'll hear me say I've been reading all these books and I'm not learning anything from it, right? A lot of it is just reaffirming what I already know. And that reaffirming is what steadies my confidence. Just like you, with God, you're going to reaffirm in God, listen, it may not be working today, but it will work tomorrow. and that consistency will continue to work. I don't want anyone to have analysis paralysis. And I watched a few of your videos. I know you talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
But I'm always studying. I probably study just as much, 7 hours, 8 hours a day as I do at the actual job. And to be honest, I make way more money out of work just selling appliances and different things like that. Right. I'll make $5,000 in a week just doing that. I have appliances that I'm about to ship out by next week, $5,000 in my pocket right there. So all those things, all those businesses that I do, is just a barrier. I was just telling myself today, I have a shield, I have a gate, I have, and all those things is called savings account, emergency fund, um, insurance policy, and I do low risk investment, low risk, high reward. It costs me nothing to start a podcast. It costs me nothing to have a duplex, just as an example, rent out the other side. I can already afford a duplex. But if someone doesn't pay me, that's okay. I'll kick them out, get somebody else. And now they're paying me. And guess what? It was low risk, high reward, right? I have to live somewhere. I might as well have somebody pay for it. I have to live somewhere. I might as well have somebody pay for it. I have to give this content to somebody. I might as well have Rumble pay for it. I have to get some of this 3% Black-owned business money. It costs me nothing. The government pays you up front, and then boom, I just have to deliver. I've been a manager all my life. I can manage one more thing. You understand? I've been doing it for everybody else. They trust me to run a whole store by myself. Why can't I run my own business? If I'm going to wake up and be on the phone for 24/7, I might as well do that for myself. And so it depends on your skill set. It depends on what you can manage. Not everybody wants to manage tenants. Not everybody wants to manage businesses. It takes a different type of individual to be willing and ready to do those things. So it's not for everybody.
100% right. I definitely want to say thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming back on the show. And if you can leave a word of wisdom for anyone who may listen to, what would that word of wisdom be?
Yeah, don't care what other people think. Be steadfast, focus on your growth, focus on your understanding, and push forward. Don't be stagnant.
Push forward. That's definitely we could definitely leave on that note. For those who are watching, I hope you guys don't see as another guest, another entrepreneur, another investor sharing their story. I hope this inspires you to go out and do something today. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Stay blessed. Thank you again, Festus.